Joining us right now on the phone is the man who exposed the Bigfoot hoax, Steve Kulls, private investigator and executive director at Squatchdetective.com.
The numbers of sightings, even if you take 99% of them and put them in the trash can, you turn around, you still have that 1% that can't be explained. Well, we need to explain it.
And then this thing walks across the road, makes a turn towards us.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
The whole time, the whole thing was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us.
I still see that damn thing to this day. It wasn't 20 feet from me.
You could see it standing from the moonlight in the tree line.
I was just scanning right to left, and it reminded me of like a gorilla.
Get somebody out here. Son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, April 23rd, 2023. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett. What up, Chris?
Good to see you, man. We have had some really great weather in Kentucky last few days, but yesterday we are getting some 30s now, so you know I may be feeling the New York pain here the next day or two.
We're doing okay. Just a lot of rain today. I'm sure it's probably snowing over in Buffalo, right, Kenny?
Not yet. Give it time. Though, you know, if you give it like 5 minutes, I'm sure the weather will change. Because that's the way it is up here.
Oh. But anyway, I'd like to welcome our guests tonight, Kenny Biddle, and of course, Ben Radford. Not the first time for Ben. And, you know, people always say, when are you going to have the skeptics on? Because we learn from the skeptics. That's why. You know, they can provide us questions that we need answers, bottom line. So OT said, stop bragging. It snowed 2 days ago in North Dakota, aka Southern Canada.
Oh, yeah. It gets cold in North Dakota, for sure.
Yeah. In Montana and in northern Idaho, and keep it. Anyway, let's do our quick roll call here. We only have Ben for an hour, so we got to till 10 o'clock. And then tonight we're going to be joined also by Kevin Harder. And Kevin can explain his credentials when he gets on, but he wrote a very interesting article for the Relic Hominid Project based on the previous DNA study done by Dr. Melba Ketchum. So tonight we're going to be talking all about that. But let's get into our first in was Kevin himself, who tried to post this link. Helton, a.k.a. Faster Man. Ammon Chris, who said, I hope there isn't a black light involved in today's, especially in the hotel room. Low Rider, B. Lynn. Hey, B. There's Ben saying hello. Grasshopper. Ammon Chris said, making a Snapple run. Any requests?
Diet Peach.
John Swan, Steve CC from Curious Cryptid, Aaron Mollenkopf, Joe Dryden, Uncle Bones 2. Little Kilroy was here again.
Kilroy.
Jeffrey Cohn, hello Jeffrey. Raptor Crazy in the house. Kenny, there's Kenny saying hello to everybody. Sharon, hello. Kaiser Ninja 1985, good to see you. Gary Johnson Sr., hello, sir. Silent Cow said, hey, I know those two on the right.
All right.
Well, I hope you get to know the knuckleheads on the left as well. And Texas Jack is on the in there.
Jack. All right.
Well, welcome. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'm sure you'll find our content,
Boom.
if not interesting, entertaining, and sometimes even infuriating. But anyway, let's jump right into it because we only got Ben till 10. So, Angel just snuck in. Angel Noah. Hello, Angel. So, Ben, you really are responsible for this because I saw your article. I saw your article and I was like, damn, that was really good. And it was off the centerforinquiry.org. And it's entitled The Return of Melba Ketchum. And I'll let you explain basically the premise of that article. And then I did a little bit of a deep dive on the commission report, which anybody knows me, take these documents and I start parsing them a little bit more and understanding what the significance of it is, and actually came up with kind of a correlation to the, our Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Genome Project. So go right ahead, Ben. Start off.
Yeah, well, first of all, Steve, thanks for inviting me on the show. And it's good to be on with Kenny and Chris. Love the show. I don't always get a chance to watch it, but I tune in when I can, and always a fun time. But yeah, so I mean, in the case of Ketchum, I mean, it's it's sort of interesting being a skeptic on the side of on Bigfoot things, and in some ways we're in the middle of things. In other ways, we have distance between it because we don't actually, like, we're not going to get in these big deep in fights because as you guys know, there's so much infighting. Like you don't even need the skeptics to bring the house down. You guys are too busy shooting each other in the ass. So it's like, and pulling hoaxes on each other and so on. Many of which, of course, Steve, you've exposed yourself. So it's always interesting, sort of being on that side of things. But I first came across Melba Ketchum stuff when I was writing for Discovery News back in 2013. And I imagine most people who are tuning into your show know some of that background, but I'll just touch on it quickly. So, she goes, of course, by Dr. Melba Ketchum, and she's not a medical doctor; she's a veterinarian, which is legitimate. I'm not casting shade on veterinarians, but I will just say at the outset that just because you're a veterinarian doesn't necessarily mean that you're well versed in genetic analysis. They are separate,
miles apart,
as we will touch on later. Anyway, so I came across it because I actually got a press release from Ketchum, or one of her PR people, who were flagging this breathless announcement about Bigfoot DNA will be revealed soon. I'm like, okay. You had me at Bigfoot DNA. To be honest, I hadn't heard of her before then. Even though I've been involved in the Bigfoot community to some degree, going back with Michael Dennett and others as well. Ketchum had been on my radar. I'm not that she wasn't there before then, but that was the first time that I really heard of her. And of course, I was intrigued by that because that's the holy grail, right? Not the blob squatches, not the eyewitness reports, not the fake photos, like something that's you can actually do genetic analysis on.
Right.
So anyway, a long story short, and again we'll go into more details later on. Basically, she had concluded that in fact she had found Bigfoot DNA. And again, the whole thing of where she published it, that's a whole rabbit hole. I won't go into it now. I'm sure we'll touch on it later. But anyway, it was basically this self-published study, and Sharon Hill did an excellent piece looking into it if people want to read that up. But basically, she put out this journal article, and I was skimming through it. And to be clear, I'm not a genetic analyst. I don't have background in genetic analysis. I'm not a veterinarian, but I do have some background in science and methodologies.
And I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express.
and what more do you need, right? So I'm reading through this, and I'm seeing red flags all over the place. Sketchy protocols. How were the samples collected? I mean, there were so many red flags here. And again, I don't claim to be an expert on a lot of stuff, but I certainly know how to conduct research. And I could just tell, just from skimming it, I could tell there were big problems with it. There was contamination problems, there was this and that. And she had said that she had she'd ruled out contamination problems by getting samples from the people that collecting them. And on some level, that's like, oh wow, she did a good job, because if you have people who are collecting the samples, if you give their genetic profile, then of course you have something to match with. But what Melba is missing, or intentionally obfuscating, is of course that all that proves, assuming that the samples are divergent, they don't match, is that whatever human DNA you find isn't from those people. Doesn't mean that it wasn't from some hiker 5 minutes earlier. There were just so many problems here. Anyway, so the reason that I was writing about her more recently is that after that whole fiasco came out, and it was just this big, glorious popcorn munching thing for skeptics to watch, I thought she had sort of vanished, and I later found out that in fact she had been accused of professional misconduct in Texas. But in any event, I thought she was going to sort of fade away like a bad penny. No. So as it turns out, as of a couple days ago, and I think still to this day, there is a GoFundMe for Melba, and she's raised, I think, so far over $20,000 to complete DNA analysis. And the beautiful part is, it wasn't just Bigfoot. It's like, you would think, like, okay, the Bigfoot thing blew up in your face, but whatever. It's like, no. We're going to expand it to not just Bigfoot, but dogmen, giants, probably chupacabras, trolls, dragons.
You forgot pixies.
Others
Right.
covers pretty much anything.
Others, right? So anyway, that's my quasi rambling intro to the whole latest edition of the fiasco.
And wow. I think it's up to almost $23,000 now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's $22,942. What the hell, man? What the hell?
We're doing something wrong.
There's 634 donations.
And somebody like dropped like I think it was like $1,000. There's a couple like high. I'm like,
yeah, the top donor is $2,000 from Anonymous. Anonymous is very popular because a lot of these are anonymous.
Right.
But then it drops down to 500.
So one would think that she would recognize, instead of doing this expansion, maybe she would recognize her mistakes, especially after the commission report, and say, hey, I want to redo this the correct way.
You would think.
But no, there has been this level of arrogance on her part that she can see where she did no wrong.
Let me just throw this out there, because this is something else I discovered just real quick, is that the reason why, and you guys know this, but just for those who don't know, the reason why this is so important to her is that she believes that not only do Bigfoot exist, but they are an unrecognized, basically literally Native American tribe that had sex with human females some 15,000 years ago. So she's, again, it's not really, she's framing it as this scientific endeavor, but if you read between her lines and you sort of look at her website, it's clear that she has this sort of savior thing, like, oh, there's this, these hidden beautiful people and they need to be protected, and it's just, and she wrote some Bigfoot romance stuff. I've never met her, but I would like to meet her just for the pure I'd just like to just shake her hand and just sort of get a sense of what she. Has either of you met her?
I talked to her, believe it or not, in 2010.
Okay.
And when I got off the phone with her, I realized there's something not quite wrong right here.
Something's not clicking.
Not that, mind you, not that she was this person that believes in the fantastical,
sure.
But she seemed to be very, very shrewd in trying to capitalize and monetize the whole process. In fact, I've looked, and Chris is laughing because Chris knows, because he's been with me so long, that I actually saw the draconian NDA that was there.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And yeah, you had to pay her. She would give you the results, but you cannot release the results. You have no rights to the results other than just knowing.
Yes. If you're
probably violating the NDA just by saying that.
Oh, yeah. If you hand her your Bigfoot DNA, this great scientific discovery, you did a cheek swab of a Bigfoot and sent it to her. She owned that. You had no claim to it whatsoever. She had the patent on your Bigfoot DNA. So, no.
Wow.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it was very draconian. I'm like, I would never in a day sign this.
Never.
You know what? If I found this evidence that became Bigfoot DNA, she's just the clearinghouse to say yes, it's Bigfoot DNA.
Right.
The results are mine, but no, when you sign this agreement, the results are hers, and she will decide when to disseminate it at the time and place of her choosing.
And it goes back to your point exactly, the monetization. She's like, okay, how can I make a buck off this? How can I get some ink out of it? And you know, I mean, I admire the handful of people in Bigfoot research, including you guys, and occasionally Jeff Meldrum, and others who I think are sincere and trying to solve the mystery and actually figure out what's going on and hash it out. But then there's this like steep drop off to like so many people who are they're out there just to make a buck or to, you know, pull hoaxes or get attention, and it's just
yeah, there seemed to be a definite group that are leaning towards the woo side, and we kind of like.
So you know, the funny thing is that I know a lot. See, and I know some of you guys don't necessarily. Kenny does a little bit, but I walk a lot of circles, and there are a lot of people that are legitimately trying to find answers to this thing.
Sure.
But they're not loud, they're not vocal, they're not on social media every other day. So for you guys to think, wow, you know, there's just a few people doing this and then there's a big drop off, not necessarily true. The people that are doing this are not talking about it because if you don't have stuff to put out there that's going to make the news, they don't put it out there.
Yeah, fair enough.
And you know, in fact, I'm gonna preempt this with just letting people know that there is a doctor in North Carolina that works for the University of North Carolina, and they are starting a Bigfoot study, DNA study, a legit university-backed study on it. So it was his interest. He apparently, I got to talk to him this week. I have his name and number. I don't want to throw it out there, even though it is out there a bit. But a lot of people don't know that this has kind of been very quietly bubbling to the top. So hopefully we'll see a legitimate effort. You know, I thought Brian Sykes' effort, the late Dr. Brian Sykes' effort, was a very legitimate effort as well. And you know, it's a shame that others,
yeah.
Yep.
Even though Dr. Sykes was really good about his findings, a lot of those were still disputed. You know, about being the ancient bear versus modern bear.
I remember that, yeah.
I think. Well, I want to piggyback off of what Ben was saying about the steep drop off. And I guess from my limited interaction with the Bigfoot community, I would have the same viewpoint or perspective as Ben, And it touches on what you said, Steve. There's a lot of people there. Well, I don't know how many, but there's a few people that work more quietly, that do their work. They're trying to do their research, and that's it. If they publish, they're going to try and publish legitimately. Whereas we see this community, this social media community, where you got to be the first, the most, the biggest, the loudest, all this kind of crap that just you constantly have this 24-hour stream of people posting pictures. And like some of the groups, and I'm sure you guys have all done this too, I've had to drop out of groups on social media because it was just nonsense after nonsense, and people just promoting it, saying, look at me, look at me. And I think that's what we see the most, because it's out there the most and it's promoted the most. So we get to see that kind of thing where it's just, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. People want to be loud and proud. They want the people to look at them. They want the likes. They want the clout. They want, the TV deals. They want to come on shows like this to be the guest so they can have the spotlight on them. I think that's where I don't want to speak for you, Ben, but I think that's where we're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so frustrating. I mean, as a skeptical researcher, and also for you guys, and like what Kenny's saying, you go on some of the Facebook groups, and then there's always somebody, I would say a couple times a week at least, someone's posting some photograph that was debunked years ago, like 15 years ago. They're like, oh, this is crazy, look at this. Yeah. And I'm like, either you're trolling or you're just stupid. And I mean, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, not everybody knows the background numbers and the research. I get it.
Finger bunker.
It's like, I know, right? But it's just like, come on, man. You're wasting people's time. You're trolling us, or you're just, and it's just so frustrating because like somebody, usually it's a skeptic, has to say no, and then we have to find the link and send it to them, and they're like, oh, I didn't know. Like, how did you not know this? How you claim to be a Bigfoot researcher? You're an enthusiast. You want to be in the mix of things, and yet you don't even know the history of what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
And it's just frustrating. It's got to be frustrating for you guys. It's like, because it just drags everybody down, because you have to either, again, you don't want to be mean to people if they're new to the thing and they're trying to, oh, I think this is cool, and they don't know that it's been debunked.
Right.
At the same time, it's like, come on, man, how are we supposed to get anything done if people have to waste their time re-debunking shit that people have known was bogus since 92?
It's a lack of fact checking. It's a lack of understanding, not just the critical thinking, but the basic idea of maybe I should make sure this is true before I share it. But that's not the mentality that we see. No. And I'm not picking on Bigfoot community. I'm saying like this is across the board with everything, from Bigfoot to ghost to flat earth bullshit. Can we curse? I'm sorry.
Why not?
I'm just making sure.
As long as we don't do it in the first 8 seconds and the intro takes care of that, so we're good.
All right, just making sure. But yeah, we see this across the board, and it's like all you have to do is spend 30 seconds, 30 freaking seconds sometimes. I mean, how many times, Ben? How many times, Steve, have you looked into a claim and it literally the first return on Google says, fact check, this is what really happened.
Right.
It's like, holy crap, less than 30 seconds and you figured it out. But there's so many on social media. I think that's the mentality now. It's that rush. We got to get first. Let's share this right away. And then we'll check it later. Maybe, probably not. Because it never comes around to that. They never get back to, unless somebody speaks up and says, hey, this is wrong because of this. Then they'll look at it, or more commonly.
Kenny, we lost your sound.
We lost your audio. Actually, I enjoyed not hearing him talk, so let's just
that was the YouTube censor going, he's talked enough.
I think
no, still don't have the sound, Kenny. You're not muted, but there's just no sound coming out, bud.
Yeah, it's not the button.
Try it now, Kenny. Nope.
But that was weird because it was just a quick glitch.
Yeah.
And then
you may have to replug and unplug your mic. Okay.
All right. He's muted now.
So yeah, and you know, Ben, I've always preached to folks, you know, it comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to, three things: profit, money, psychological need, and finally just, lack of investigative knowledge.
Right.
You know, the last few weeks we've been battling a battle, which I started to ignore. I'm done with him. I'm moved on to the next.
Chris is like, oh God.
He can threaten to take down my channel. Hey, guess what? We're still here, and we're going to continue to be here.
Right.
I always say it's, if you just follow your investigative principles, you'll be fine. And the first thing I've been preaching is victimology. Mm-hmm. If you look at, so if you have a witness, they're the victim. So you got to look at the victimology first. What's their background? What's this? Before you even look at their video or listen to their audio or any of that.
It's speaking of Ketchum, I mean, it's remarkable when you go through her stuff as you have, how often she plays the victim, right? She's like, oh, Galileo, and they're silencing me, and the mean right. Scientific journals won't publish my stuff because and it's this whole victim thing. It's like, Melba, do better research, up your game. Yep. I mean, it's like we're not being mean to you. You're not doing good research.
Kenny, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha.
Unfortunately, yes.
Screw you, bitch. I love you, Ben.
But anyway, let me do this. Let me while I got Ben on, let's do the quick slideshow about. Now you see, if everybody thinks Melba is this perfect doctor, which they always. All her supporters do. Oh, Melba's done this, and Melba's testified in court before, including a murder case. And then we find out that she actually went up on charges of professional misconduct and professional negligence. And this ruling was in 2021. It concerns a murder. The state of Texas versus Theodore Schmidt, who was 28 years old. In February of 2009, allegedly murdered Sabrina Pina, was found guilty by a jury of his peers. So he murdered her in February of 2009. She was abducted. She was abducted from a Kulls parking lot, found by a trucker, on the side of the road the next day, 23 miles away. She was bound with duct tape. And there's no doubt, I really think, to this guy's crime. Not only did he get found guilty by his jury, but they found a latent fingerprint, and he was in their system, their criminal system, for a prior arrest for theft. They found his latent fingerprint on the duct tape tied to her body. And he claimed he knew her at one point when he was interviewed, but he hadn't seen her in several years and all this other stuff. But the underlying going over the report, again, it says this criminal case is the subject of this complaint is a capital murder where the identity of the assailant was in question. Law enforcement found the victim in a ditch along the roadside. Her wrists were bound together with duct tape, and duct tape was wrapped in multiple separate layers around her, covering her eyes. She had a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. Surveillance video captured footage of the defendant and the victim at a store, which was the Kulls, before the murder. During the execution of a search warrant, police recovered clothing of the defendant believed to be the clothing he was wearing in the video. Investigators found what appeared to be dog hair on the defendant's jacket and shirt. At trial, Ketchum testified that the hair from the defendant's clothing had the identical DNA sequence as hair recovered from the victim's clothing, and a reference sample taken from the victim's dog. And as we find out, that wasn't necessarily true. I'll just the Harris County Public Defender's Office alleges Ketchum committed misconduct when she testified about the forensic analysis of the canine DNA while knowing her laboratory was not accredited under Texas law. The complaint also alleges Ketchum presented incomplete and misleading testimony regarding DNA analysis in the case by failing to explain the limitations of her opinion. including the rarity of the mitochondrial haplotype sequences. The haplotype sequences observed according to available canine population data. This is very consistent with what we're going to talk about in her DNA study, especially when we get Mr. Harder on. So they describe what professional misconduct is. It means the analysis of crime laboratory through material act or omission deliberately failed to follow a standard of practice that an ordinary forensic analyst or crime laboratory would have followed in a deliberate act or omission which substantially affect the integrity of the results of a forensic analysis. I wish I could sum that up really easy, I guess, but what it's basically saying is that, it would go back to, I would say, even pre-DNA stuff. Well, he had the same blood type as the killer. Now we have ways of, determining what percentage of the population of the person has that, what percentage in his family has that blood type. Is there, we have other anomalies in blood, like an excretor and stuff like that. And when you take semen samples, there's what they call excretors, which will, and that they were able to kind of coalesce in some of the earlier murder cases, that if they had found a semen sample, if they were an excretor, which means their blood type would be in the semen, which is not normal for most of us. It only occurs, I think, and I'm guesstimating here, maybe about 10% of the population does that. And they would say, well, he's an excretor. So is 10% of the population of the world. So it's not really a rock solid, piece of evidence. And I guess that's kind of what we're getting here.
Yeah, I mean, what jumped out at me, there were two things jumped out at me. One is that the standard for finding somebody guilty of professional misconduct, that's not a joke. I mean, there are lots of things that people can do in their ordinary. You forget something, you file something a day late, you don't cross your I, dot your T. Stuff like that goes all the time. If you read the report, and Steve, I'm really glad that we're seeing some of it here, and it's available online, and I linked to it in my piece. It's very damning. This is not, she really screwed up here. This is not a oh, she didn't clock out. This is misconduct. Right. And some people might be tempted to say, oh, well, it's a different case and totally unrelated. It is not. I mean, you look at what she described as doing, such as not revealing caveats, right? Just for making these bold statements. Well, we found Bigfoot DNA, mitochondrial DNA. There you go. Yep. And intentionally leaving out all the reasons why we should be cautious about it, maybe not making such bold claims. And also just disregarding standards of conduct, right? And we saw this in her trying to publish in the Novo Journal instead of getting it peer reviewed, right? Just across the board, there's this pattern. There's the very clear pattern, and the Texas Forensic Science Commission highlights this. This is not us being mean. This is other people independently saying, she's engaging in misconduct. She's talking outside of her expertise. She's making bold claims that she can't back up. And in this case, somebody could have gone to jail or been released from jail because of her, her misconduct.
Correct. And well, let me get into professional negligence, and then we'll go into, I got this all covered in some of the slides here. So professional negligence means the analyst or crime laboratory, through a material act of omission negligently failed to follow a standard of practice that an ordinary forensic analyst or crime laboratory would have followed. And a negligent act or omission would substantially affect the integrity of the results of a forensic analysis. An act or omission was negligent if the forensic analyst or crime laboratory should have been aware of an accepted standard of practice. So if you didn't know, that would be kind of misconduct or professional, misconduct. Well, yeah, but if you did know, that's professional negligence.
And a lot of it boils down, though, that her DNA laboratory was not accredited under Texas law. So right there, that's a giant red flag. She's not qualified.
Right there, we could just stop there. There's a serious problem at that level alone.
Right. She's not
So
qualified
Gary
under
Johnson
Texas
says,
law.
how is this helping the Bigfoot world and defaming someone? Just saying, who are we defaming? This is all fact. We're not defaming. And defaming is making a claim against somebody. Defaming is defamation. And defamation is telling a lie.
I can talk about defamation if you'd like. It involves either having actual malice or having being indifferent to the facts. We're not indifferent to the facts. We're revealing the facts right here. If Melba Ketchum would like to sue me for defamation, you know where I am. None of us are defaming Melba Ketchum at all.
No.
If you have an issue with it, take it up with the Texas Forensic Science Commission.
This is a matter of public record. We're reading what's on the public file, and as anyone can. So
correct. And why is this important? Because she's collecting money already, $23,000, bucks.
For research. I hesitate to call it research based on the previous examples, but I mean, where's this money going to? Is it going to another fiasco like we've already experienced with this? And I mean, it just looks. I mean, and I'm sorry I'm derailing here, but the GoFundMe page is incredibly basic and
it has like 3 sentences, right? Give us money. We're looking at genetics to see what's related. Give us money. There's no background, no
background of her, no course of action, no plan, nothing. Like there's nothing there. Just saying, hey, we want to finish the study. Like that's it. There's nothing there, and people are just giving money. And this is just this whole show, I think, is based on trying to inform you, the people that are watching this, like this is not worth it. This person is not worth giving your money or following or encouraging, because they do not do legitimate research. They don't help you guys at all. They don't make your community look good. They make your community look like shit. That's what's going on here. And
and prepared to be be prepared to be disappointed. Don't have high expectations, because in 2010 we all had high expectations.
Yes,
did we not? And I'm not going to fall for this again. Fool me once, you're the fool. Fool me twice, I'm the fool.
Yep.
And that's I live by that. And so we're not defaming anybody here. This is no malice here whatsoever. This is just fact and analyzation, and it's important. And Gary, I promised my audience, if you watch my intro to this channel, when you go on the channel page before you subscribe, it says, I'm here to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sometimes it's ugly.
I want to put in perspective here too. I mean, you guys have done this, but I just want to say it outright. Like what we're looking right here is a case, a murder case. A freaking murder case. Somebody lost their lives, and testimony from this person that we're talking about tonight was part of the decision of whether to convict that person or not. So this is dead serious. This is the top tier thing. Somebody lost their lives, and we're trying to figure out if somebody else did it or not. And that's way above. Is this a Bigfoot hair?
Absolutely.
And it trickles down, though. We're seeing what happened here with this court case. We're seeing what happened to her because she wasn't honest. She wasn't legitimate. And I don't know what was going on with the court system that hired her. Whoever hired her, there was some major red flags there, too. But she should never have been in court.
My point is this. Is not only could it have convicted the wrong person, but we know now through parsing the actual case, which I've done, that there was a latent fingerprint found on the duct tape. So I have no doubt this guy did it. His interviews were cagey, all that. But her testimony could have derailed the whole thing. And let me give you a great example of that. O.J. Simpson. When Phil Van Adder took the blood and stuck it in his pocket that was collected by Dennis Fung, and then went back to OJ's house with that blood collected at the Bundy house and took it over to OJ's residence, that could open up the door for contamination. It's a wrong procedure, incorrect procedure. And what it ended up happening was putting reasonable doubt in some jurors' minds. And that's unfortunate.
Well, yeah, you got to look at it from the point of view of the defense attorney. I mean, if the defense attorney could get this tape thrown out and with it the latent fingerprint, then all they have left to prosecute the guy or to find him guilty with is the DNA evidence. Well, if that's already subpar, it's gone. This guy walks. So you have a convicted murderer who is now walking the streets.
And I was blessed because 30 years ago, I had a job where I was basically watching a store, and we had radios, and we were allowed to have radios in our office, and we would kick on the OJ trial. My boss and I would call each other all day long back and forth. Hey, you listening to this? Yeah. What do you think? And we were taught, because it was a big, being our background, that was really, so we learned a lot from it. And, when Van Adder did that, that's going to be bad news, because that would put reasonable doubt in my mind.
Sure.
Is it possible? Well, yes, now it is possible. He could have put some of that blood down and said, "Oh, we found it at his house." So, or on the Bronco, or
the white Bronco.
And I'll be honest. I mean, I this is the only one that we know of for certain where there was a finding of professional misconduct. I'm not saying there are other ones, but I would not be shocked that if there are other ones that we didn't, they didn't rise to the level that there was complained about.
So here's another thing too. In this case, the commission received unequivocal information from the accrediting body that accreditation in non-human DNA was available and obtainable for any qualified laboratory at the time of the forensic analysis performed in the Schmidt case. Whatever efforts Ketchum made to participate in the USFWL proficiency program fell short. And that's the commission finds Ketchum was professionally negligent in failing to achieve accreditation for the laboratory before performing forensic analysis and offering related testimony. So boom, there's the negligence part. And then we have the commission finds the testimony of Ketchum in the Schmidt case trial was incomplete and posed a substantial risk of misleading the trier of fact. The commission also finds Ketchum was aware and consciously disregarded the accepted standard of practice as set forth in peer-reviewed article she actually co-authored. Ketchum's testimony constituted professional misconduct because she was aware of this and consciously disregarded an accepted standard of practice in failing to provide a quantitative statement about the outcome of her analysis. So, and then finally, in relation to what to do to her, they probably would have removed her from being able to testify in future cases.
I'm stuck on the idea that she knew. Like, can you go back a slide or two?
Yep.
Right there. Right. Like where?
I think that was that slide.
There.
She was aware and consciously disregarded.
And constantly. I mean, that should speak volumes right there. Like she willingly just disregarded the standard of practice, and now you got to think.
Was it bias?
What is this project now? Like, what are people donating money to? And what we've seen, what I've read from before, like when she released this her paper with the one issue of the journal that only had the one paper on it, like she's manipulating, she's willfully ignoring the standards here across the board.
Oh, so there's Jeffrey, who apparently is an attorney.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah.
Like, why is there any validity attributed to her whatsoever? I mean, I just don't understand. We should not be talking about her.
Yep.
To be honest, we should not be talking about her because
she knew what she should have done. She chose not to do it. End of story.
End of story. That's it. And I mean, you have no idea now what's going on with her projects with all these cryptids. You have no idea what's going on in the background.
We didn't have what was going on in the background in the first one. There was a lot of lack of, like, for a lot of people didn't know that when she first started the project, she formed an LLC called Science Alive LLC. And she formed that with two people, the late Richard Stubstad, who was really the money guy at that point in time, I believe, and Java Bob Schmalzbach. Now, if you don't know who Java Bob Schmalzbach is, he was the vice president of Searching for Bigfoot Incorporated, who was led by Tom Biscardi.
Oh, it's all coming together. Okay.
And for a long time, Biscardi's own website was advertising people to send DNA stuff to Ketchum's laboratory. And how did Biscardi latch on to her? Because he saw her on Destination Truth with Josh Gates when Josh took the Yeti hair, the alleged Yeti hair, to Melba, and I think that's what sparked her limelight into this. I think, but that's speculation.
Right, yeah. Good detective work. That's why this is what you do. But it's just such this sort of weird incestuous thing, and just sort of like, putting this stuff out there, and I want you there. The whole thing just smells to high heaven. Now, look,
and mind you, the reason why that association and those two were dropped was because of the almighty dollar. Yeah.
The original Ketchum DNA study, it went around for peer review, and everybody kicked it out not because it's Bigfoot, not because they had something against Melba Ketchum, but because the study wasn't valid. Science does not invalidate you because of your name, or they don't invalidate you because of your subject. They invalidate you because your work is invalid. And either it stands up to peers or it doesn't. And, she tried to go around that by purchasing or creating her own journal,
right,
to publish her own paper. And, that's not science. That's just self-promotion.
And like it's, if you read it, I mean, it's so clear. There's so many opportunities for contamination. I mean, the people that were, it's garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. GIGO is the theme of Melba's research.
And understand, the people collecting the samples did not do that maliciously, or they just didn't know. They just didn't know.
Yeah, and again, that's a failure of Melba Ketchum. If you're claiming that you're going to be doing genetic analysis or any other type of analysis, and you're saying send me data, send me what you have, you need to establish the provenance, the chain of custody. Did somebody know how to collect evidence? Yes or no? And instead, it's just like, hey, if you're hiking somewhere, grab something, and there was no. I mean, again, if you read her paper, there's little or no discussion of any effort to standardize evidence collection techniques to preserve evidence. It's just sort of, if you found something, send it to me. And okay, but that's not how that works. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a name. There is going to be a name that we're going to be able to trust to send DNA to, and that's going to be Dr. Darby Orcutt, and we're going to be getting hopefully him on the show soon enough. But
still a little premature.
This reminds me strongly of a case, 1954, I think, the Seekers cult, where they basically there was a psychologist that was studying this cult about cognitive dissonance, and it came up with this idea that this group of people believed that they were going to be taken up into a spaceship. I think a couple days before Christmas, like the December 21st, I think, something like that. And when the day came and no aliens showed up, instead of realizing, like, all these people got together in this cult and they sold off everything, all their possessions, they quit their jobs, they did all this stuff. And instead of realizing that they made a mistake, they doubled down and changed the narrative so that everything would fit and they could justify why it didn't happen. It went from the world was going to end, and that's why this spaceship was coming to get them because they were the chosen few. It went from that kind of summary to, well, we believed so much that we actually saved the world. You're welcome. The world didn't blow up.
We were so powerful.
Yes.
That
we did that for you. That was
Right.
the justification. And that was one of the bases. I think that was the base case for cognitive dissonance, I believe. I don't know. Ben, you might be able to help. Me with
that was certainly one of the more higher, one of the higher profile ones where,
Right.
you know, the doomsday psychology and like, you know, what do people, how do they react when their claims are invalidated? And usually the answer isn't, oh my God, I was wrong. It was,
Well,
let me double down.
We saw that with a recent case where we point out to this person's evaluation that it was a head in a box that's been sitting, you know, in a antique shop for years now, 30, 40 years, since 1989. And his reaction to it was, oh, I didn't do any past research on it. I messed up. His reaction was to move the goalpost.
Right.
Well, now we know where the real evidence is. Find out where that head is. There's the evidence of Bigfoot right there. And the onus is not on me to prove it's real. The onus is on the people that laid the claims to prove it's not real.
Right.
And then we showed a picture. I was on Hairy Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks with Nikki Colon, another great podcast. And she actually had a picture of somebody standing next to the head, and it was just the same size as a normal human being. You know, you wouldn't expect a Sasquatch head to be the same size as our coconut, would you? Expect it a little bit bigger.
Right.
And so definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like certainly in Bigfoot, I mean, there's always going to be ambiguity and controversy about the Patterson Gimlin film or the Minnesota Iceman, or I mean, I get it. There nobody. Doesn't matter what is found tomorrow. There's people that are not going to believe it either way. So there. I mean, that's just the nature of things. But in other cases, there is enough evidence, and I would argue there actually is enough in those cases. But there are ones that are smaller cases that, you know, it's crystal clear what the hell happened. The answer is no. Accept it, move on, instead of, you know, having to relitigate it.
Yes, Justin Mills. Or Justin Mullis. Welcome, Justin. They're talking about Leon Festinger's famous study When Prophecy Fails. Yep. Very nice. Well, welcome, Justin.
That's a good book. That's a really good book. I highly recommend it.
And thanks for Justin and Jeff and others to tune in. I'm not following the chat, but I'm glad you guys are tuning in and checking us out. So
well, I hope they keep checking this podcast out, because we always try to keep it real and keep it down to earth. And
when people get into that mentality, like a cult following, it can be dangerous. I mean, if you look at the Heaven's Gate deal with the Hale Bopp comment, you know, those guys won't be coming back to say they were wrong, you know, or that they saved the world, because they're gone.
They're gone, all right.
They're gone.
I see Kevin in the back room. Just so if Kevin's listening to this, Kevin, I see your devices are not connected, so you need to connect your devices by going into settings and hooking that up. So hopefully that'll all get worked out.
Yeah, I'm trying to help him.
Okay.
Kenny's the tech guy. I just look good.
Oh, there's a debate for that.
Is that a science experiment behind you, Kenny?
Well,
probably.
Which side?
Both
There's
sides.
shit going on all over the place here. I don't know what you're looking at. This side?
Yeah.
That side? Yeah.
That.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Something going on.
There's something on that side too, but don't worry. As long as you don't see smoke, everything's fine.
Well, Steve. So I as I mentioned, after Melba's last fiasco in 2012, 2013, again the whole thing just blew up, and I was just fascinated by it. But again, to my mind, she had just sort of faded away. So what was your? I want to talk to Steve and Chris. What was your? I'd be curious to hear what your reaction was when all that happened in the fallout.
Well, I actually had gotten word of it before the study actually came out. One of my sources said, well, this is what's being said. And I'm like, oh, here it goes. And I just sat back and waited. And, the whole thing, when the whole news broke that she originally blasted, hey, we got published in the De Novo Journal. And then it was the mainstream media that actually found out, excuse me, but you just brought that and owned that journal. And to me,
we're not that dumb, Melba.
Yeah, so misleading.
Yeah,
misleading. People forget that she said they got published.
Yeah, right? It's so like reading this story, and some of the moves that she most of the moves that she made. It's mind-boggling. Like the course of action that she took in order to promote this, and it's almost like. There was a gentleman years ago that I won't mention his name, Roundtree, that put out all these claims, these big shot claims, and didn't realize, really didn't have this concept that you could look it up, that you could research it, that how fast that we can research things today. Even 5 years ago, you could still research all this stuff really, really fast.
I don't know how comparing that person to Melba, how I did that. I didn't really compare it. I was just bringing that up as far as another example of people moving the goalposts. That is a defense mechanism that is used by people when, just like the when prophecy fails, the cult in that, the doomsday prophet, the people that had the doomsday we're going to get picked up by the UFOs. They didn't get picked up by the UFO, so what was their response? Move the goalpost. That's what they do all the time, is move the goalpost.
Yep.
And that's what I'm seeing Melba do. I'm seeing the goalpost being dug up and tossed as far away as possible. And it's trying to justify what she's done in the past, not recognizing the errors that she made. I mean, if you mess up, own it. That's it. Sure. Just own it. Yeah. I mean, you could be disastrously wrong and just horribly wrong, but just own it, and learn from it and move on. Don't repeat the same mistakes.
So that, to answer Daniel, yes, Josh Gates did use her for the Eddie hair analysis. Yeah. There seems to be, to me, when you can't own up to your mistake, again, that's either one of two things. Psychologically, you can't, because, of all the reasons. We did an episode a couple of weeks ago about the psychology of Bigfoot, and where we talked about different types, and sometimes narcissism and ego and pride. Person can't own up to owning a mistake. And the other is more dubious, and that's you're just dishonest and don't care. Yeah. As long as that money and popularity keeps coming in, and you're held up by all these people that you can't let them down by admitting you're wrong. And I know it's 10 o'clock, Ben, so if you want to...
I can stay a little bit longer, but I was just going to say real quick, I mean, if it's interesting, if you go to her GoFundMe page and you skim through the comments, there's some of them are just anonymous, this and that, but there's a lot of, Melba, don't let the bastards get you down, and we believe in you, and, you're speaking the truth, and all this stuff. It's just like, wow. It's like, and all I say is that if I were Ketchum, I would begin, first of all, I would have a lot more on the page. Second of all, I would say, I screwed up. I'm sorry. This is my background. This is what I've learned from this. I'm going to be transparent about this. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page, on the up and up. I'm genuinely trying to solve this mystery.
Just so you know, my camera died, guys.
This is how I'm going to use your money, for one thing. Right. And instead, it's this sort of very ambiguous, 2-sentence, hey, send us money. And wish that people who are better qualified, and I don't mean that necessarily disparagingly, but I mean, I am for Bigfoot DNA analysis. I absolutely am.
Sure.
I'm not knocking it. I'm not making fun of it. I don't think it's stupid. I think it's a great idea. It just has to be done right. That's my position.
Right. And I mean the idea that she has done this before. So she put out that she had to buy a journal in order to publish her own paper,
right,
to get it out there. And that just speaks of just so many wrongs. And we don't have to go back on that. But there was no fixing that. There wasn't any, hey, this is me. There was no admission of guilt or wrongdoing, and there was no recovery. There was nothing to indicate that anything was fixed.
Right.
And I mean, even in Sharon Hill's piece on it, Sharon actually she quoted her Ketchum as saying something on the Coast to Coast AM. She said that if given the chance, she basically wouldn't do this again because of all the backlash, I guess. And I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Right.
But yet here she is doing it again. And there's nothing to back it up. You have the 3 lines in the GoFundMe, a GoFundMe account that's saying, hey, just give me money because I want to finish a study. I guess I know I'm harping on this, but stop giving her money. Just stop. There's nothing in it. There's nothing. You're not going to get anything out of it.
Well, and one question I have is how much does it cost to do this? I mean, people, the cost and the speed and the efficacy and all these other things of genetic analysis has dropped considerably just in the past 5-10 years. So it's a fair question. Like, Melma, how much money do you need? What samples do you have? And is this really going to cost $22,000 to do this, or can you do this for $5,000 and you're going to pocket the rest? I don't know, but there needs to be a lot more transparency here.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And you can't simply ignore the points brought up by the peer review on your study. You can't just say, well, you're just saying that because you're mean. Right. You've got to consider, you put out your study, and then you're going to get some counter proposals to what they thought you should have done or differently in order to make it accurate. And you've got to consider that. If you don't consider it, then you're just, you're pushing your own stuff there, and it's not going to be considered valid in science. I'm sorry, but
right. I just had my camera died a second ago, folks, because I just had a USB hub failure.
Oh, wonderful.
And luckily I only had a couple items on it, but right now I have no keyboard.
Oh no.
So it's like, but I got the mouse, so I can do stuff here anyway.
There you go.
I don't know if Kevin's going to be able to come in tonight. He can't get his microphone working.
Okay, well, we'll get him on another time then. That's all well and fine.
I'll stick it a little bit longer and try to keep you entertained, and then I do have a hard out pretty soon, but I'm having fun with you guys, and I can make them wait a little bit. So
yeah,
yay.
If it was Kenny, you just blow him off anyway. Like, yeah, Kenny, I'm busy, but he's live with me on, so I can't do that. I know.
We're all about the human factor here. If anybody makes a mistake, and everybody does, it's 10 times easier to come out and say, you know what, I was wrong, and I made a mistake. That is not difficult to do, and you can come back from that. I was wrong. I made a mistake by doing this. And next time, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it this way. But some people just can never can say those words. I was wrong. They just cannot get it. They'll double down, triple down, quadruple down.
I have said I was wrong.
Oh, of course.
I have. I mean, it's difficult. I get it. I understand it. It's very difficult. And coming to grips with that and realizing that you have to say it out loud. I mean, just being sorry by yourself is one thing. Like you can be down and like when I'm wrong about something, especially when I put it out there in public, holy crap, I come down on myself hard, you know, like really hard, and I'm really bummed out. But when you have to say it publicly, when you have to tell a bunch of people like, hey, I was wrong, you know, that's so difficult. But over the years, like I've done it because, you know, once or twice, I've been wrong again, except when I'm doing stuff for Ben, then I'm much better than
I have to fix his stuff all the time. You'd be amazed at how wrong he is until I fix it. And
thankfully Ben's my editor, so he picks out the mistakes that I make.
It works out well.
But I mean, once you get over that hump, that major hump, and realize like, look, you know, it sucks, but it has to be done. And I think you're a better person for it. You know, I've been up on a stage in front of 1,000 people telling them, hey, you know what? I did this years ago. This is what I did. Here's a picture of me doing it. Here's a video of me doing it. And I was so freaking wrong. So wrong. And I regret it because like and this is going off the Bigfoot thing, but I've told people in their own homes, like your house is haunted. You might have a demon. I've told people that because I was a ghost hunter years and years and years ago. And I regret that, you know, because that's something I influenced someone's life because of my ignorance and just not being able to say I was wrong or admit that I didn't know what was going on.
See, a lot of people don't know that I was involved in the paranormal for a while, and I've stepped away from that.
Good for you.
Well, Steve was doing like scientific studies on like, do we have any sort of readings here? Let's see.
But my point being is that are there places that I feel that were legitimately had some stuff going on? There's some things I can't explain, but when it gets into the whole demonic realm and all that other stuff, I'm shying away from that stuff. I'm like, nah.
Well, especially because that's, you know, like Kenny was saying, I mean, that could be, I mean, again, I don't want to get off topic, but, you know, that can be super pathological, right? I mean, you have people who sincerely, and, you know, we've all spoken to people face to face who are terrified. You can see it in this is not a joke to them. This is not a hoax. They're generally frightened. There's some unknown, hidden demonic force somewhere in their house, and they're scared shitless spot. And so it's a matter of trying to sort of bring them back. But let me just return for a second to Melba, because what I find interesting about her, and again, I never met the woman. I'd like to, just out of curiosity. But again, my sense of it, and I've told you guys before, in general, I give people the benefit of the doubt. Sure. 9 times out of 10, more than that, if someone tells me that they saw a Bigfoot, they saw a UFO, they saw a ghost, I believe that that's what they believe. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying they're not, in most cases, they're not liars. They're not crazy. They're telling me they're trying to relate an experience that they had in the best way that they can. And they're using these labels, Bigfoot, ghosts, what have you, to explain these things. And in the case of Melba, right. So, you know, I have no reason to assume that she's not sincere. I mean, you know, she's again, I don't know. I'm assuming that she genuinely believes that there, you know, what she's saying is that, you know, she believes that there's these, you know, this essentially, you know, hidden wild people, feral people, basically an unrecognized Native American group that needs protection. And of course, as you guys know, this is part and parcel of a lot of Bigfoot. Now, a lot of people think of, you know, the wild man of the woods, and Sasquatch and Bigfoot is a free spirit that's, you know, that's untouched by the evils of you know, of this and that. And so I assume that she genuinely believes that, or is trying to put that out. But at the same time, I'm trying to reconcile that with the veterinarian that is probably speaking outside of her field, and has been told by Texas that she engaged in misconduct. I mean, that's got to be so. I'm not trying to harp on it, but I mean, you would think there'd be a thing where, like, I really believe this is true. I'm trying to get it out there. I'm trying to get people to see Bigfoot the way I see them, and yet the methods that she's using are not, number one, they have self-evidently failed. I mean, the 2012, 2013, her original study is not cited by anybody except as a joke and sort of an embarrassing, footnote, big footnote in history. So I mean that didn't work, and so I would think that if she really is sincere about this, and I mean I'm not psychoanalyzing her, I'm curious, I'm just for discussion, how do you reconcile her presumably sincere belief that these things are out there and she's not BSing us about that, and yet the steps that she's trying to take are not scientific, they're not going anywhere, and all of us are 99% certain that it's not going to go anywhere, and this is going to be yet another fiasco.
The amazing thing to me there is the only diversion I would have to that is that in the actual report, it said that Melba had acknowledged her mistakes in regards to the Schmidt trial. So why does she admit their mistakes, but not on this?
Maybe because there's consequence, right? I mean,
maybe she was advised by her legal
attorney.
Yes.
Look in the upper left-hand corner. That's probably why. The upper left, not me, but the over that one right there. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah. There's one thing though. I mean, if you have a genetic profile of a previously unknown primate that's new to science, and you say, hey, look, I have this DNA sequence. This is it. This is something that's new to science, and it's a previously unknown primate. Okay, that's one thing. That's announcing that to the world is one thing. But when you say, well, since I have this, that means, these biblical characters, Nephilim or whatever, have crossbred with American Indians, and that happened, 15th. No. That's
bringing in Dogman and any.
Right. That's too far of a reach.
Do we know where the 15,000 year number came from? Is that just something pulled out of a hat, or is there anything?
I'm thinking that, I don't know, but I think she got this from tracing back to mitochondrial DNA, but I'm not certain of that. I'm speaking outside of my.
It is in her report that it dates back 15,000 years.
Right. Yeah. Like what? I guess.
But like in this, there's no tables. Well, as Kevin was going to speak to it, he did a report, and unfortunately we can't get him on this week. But, his report basically came down, and he wrote that to the Relic Hominin Project, was that, there are diversions in DNA, and I'm trying to make this as simple because it's really some heavy stuff.
Kevin's pretty smart. You'll have to have him on next time.
Yeah. But what he says is there's no chain linking to, like the tables they were looking for the dogs. There's none of that goes on here. And again, it's just, we don't need that. We don't need to show that. There's no transparency of how you got to A to B. And that's because something a lot of people forget is she patented the primer used in the study.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
And that's why she wanted to, she patented the primer. So if there's a mistake in the primer, bazing, all your results are going to be skewed. And that was my standpoint 10 years ago. That I said right from the shoot, the primer is skewed. The primer is wrong. She patented, she sends the sample with the primer sample to be used at these other labs. The labs, the other independent, she'll quote, oh, well, the other labs came up with the same result. Well, you sent them the primer too.
So
it's not like,
go. Yeah. Okay, but again, Steve, so that's a perfect example. So I know this, you know this, Kevin knows this, Kenny could probably figure it out. Chris knows this. Doesn't Melba know this? Does she not recognize it, or does she just think that she's just pulling the wool over people's eyes?
Or is she willfully ignoring it?
I think it's the point where she's taking a stance. And this is, like I say, when people find out they're wrong, they can't admit it. She had to with the commission because they ruled. Yeah. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You don't have a commission censoring her for anything in this case, so she can sit there and no. And I'm going to make excuses. I'm Galileo. I'm Copernicus. Science is trying to shut me out. When scientists within even the Bigfoot community have said, nope, not so fast.
Well, I mean, of course, this is all within the context of the larger question of where, assuming Bigfoot exists, where do they fit in the evolutionary tree, right? So this is, as long as people have believed in Bigfoot and Yeti and different incarnations, the question's always been, okay, if they're real and they're subject to the evolutionary pressures that all living things are subjected to, just because that's how the world works, then where the hell do they fit in? Are they human? Are they apes? I mean, what are they? Nephilim? I mean, it's like, take your pick, right? And so that's always been one of the fundamental glaring errors that I've seen. There's lots of glaring errors, in my opinion, about Bigfoot research, including the lack of bodies, and I mean, we can go on, but that's a big one. Is okay. Well, let's just assume for a second that they're real. Then there's tens of thousands of them. They're across North America and so on. Where did they come from? Where did they branch off? What are they? And until we get some genetic analysis of something that is something that we can prove is in fact either unknown or related to humans, mitochondrially, otherwise, then it's all how many angels can dance on the head of a pin?
Exactly.
I saw a documentary years ago that said that Bigfoot was a android scout for a race of aliens.
I saw that documentary. That was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. And that's right. I remember his arm being ripped off by a guy named Steve. That's right.
Yeah. And the footage, the footage was actually very, very clear, unusually clear for Bigfoot. I have to say,
that's why I thought it was fake, because it was just way too clear.
It's too.
I really have a lot of hope for a new DNA evidence to be gathered. I mean, there was a lot of information gathered from the Denisovan discoveries, in which they, were able to isolate Neanderthal DNA and modern human DNA. I think that they also managed to isolate a small segment of relic hominid DNA, which is one of our ancestors we have yet to discover yet. So I'm looking forward to this stuff coming out now, and maybe some of the environmental DNA will yield some results.
I would like to see. I mean, I'm right there with you. I would love to see something come out. I mean, that's I know something I've gotten from Ben and other skeptics that I work with. I mean, we would love to see something good,
right?
Really good. But I think, and I don't know too much about this, but when these calls are put out for samples, like, are they just thrown out to anyone, or is it just like a specific, like, university investigative teams that have collected samples, or is it just like your weekend warrior? And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, your weekend hobbyist that goes out there and says, "Oh, I think I found hair or scat or something that has to do with Bigfoot. I'm going to collect it." And when I hear, somebody puts a call out for samples to be tested like this, they send it in.
I believe 99% of the samples that would be collected would be by typical weekend researchers, people who are not professionals.
I like Rowdy Rout. He's a good guy. He has some hang-ups here about what we're discussing a little bit. And, he goes, but if it's not a primate, what would it be? If you look at the traditional description of it, you're describing a primate, something with articulate hands and feet, large brain, small snout.
The Patterson Gimlin film shows a primate,
right?
Either human or
otherwise.
That is a primate. We can all agree on that,
right?
So.
Right. You know, and if not, if you think it's a shape-shifting spirit, you know, what I've seen twice was not a shape-shifting spirit. Sorry, it was almost as if, you know, it went into the woods just like a deer crossing the road and gone, and it's camouflaged into the woods.
Well, I'm going to have to take off in a second, but I just want to leave you with this. And I want to thank Steve and Chris and to a lesser extent Kenny. Been fun chatting with you guys. But I just want to say this is that if any other, well, if any reputable, if this project were being pulled together, the Bigfoot Genome and Sasquatch project was being put together by somebody who was a recognized geneticist, if Sykes or Todd Disotell or Michael Forstner, who I write about in my Chupacabra book, who sequenced Chupacabra DNA that turned out to be canid. If this project were being done by somebody who I had any faith in whatsoever, I'd be donating $100, $500. I mean, so this is not a stupid project, but if it was being done by somebody who I had the faintest whiff of credibility and the thought that this would actually be done in some scientifically valid method that's going to result in something, I'd be the first to send the money. But not
yeah.
I don't know what this is. So
yeah, this is 3 sentences of a send me money.
I wouldn't put my money on this horse.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, Ben, when I saw your article and you mentioned the GoFundMe and I went to it, I was like, where's the rest of it?
Right.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Like, are you seriously? The screenshot was all that's there. Like, this is not a no.
Yeah, I was not cherry picking. That's okay. That is the entirety of the site. Now, if you want to give her money, she'll probably give you a little maybe that unlocks a special page where she gives you another couple sentences on it
for an NDA. Yeah, no thanks.
Right.
and you know, one quick other fact is that even though she was receiving monies back then, and actually it was before GoFundMe or any of those type of she was actually that you have that draconian NDA, and then you were expected to pony up $2,500 for the DNA test.
Wow.
So you're paying all this money for a DNA that's done in-house with her stuff.
Steve, point to the dollar bills again. I like when you did that. Do that again. There you go.
Dollar bills. Cha-ching.
I think there we go. I think that sums it up.
Yeah. All right. Yep. But anyway, thanks for coming on tonight, Ben. We won't hold you up.
No, this has been fun. This has been great. Have Kevin on next time. I'll tune in for that one. And you guys go on and let's circle back and, you know, let's revisit this in another 3-9 months when the whole thing turns into another fiasco. We can talk about it again.
Oh yeah, we'll have you back. It's gonna be.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Ben. It's always a pleasure to have you.
All right.
See you,
Take
Ben.
care, guys.
You know, my question is, Kenny, when the Dogman DNA comes out, what kind of dog is it going to be related to? A Collie, a Shih Tzu, a German Shepherd, a Schnauzer?
Yeah. Like, how do you? I don't even know where to start with that. I just this entire thing, I'm having trouble taking it seriously. And again, I'm not trying to be mean, and it's not anything against the community as a whole. It's this. When I see someone go through and do like, let me collect my words here. When I see someone perpetrate the fiasco that this person did years ago, and then expects to do it all over again, I guess it goes back. It reminds me of Rick Dyer, and I don't want to say his name on your program. I don't know, but it's the same thing. Did he not do it like 2 or 3 times? You know, try to do the same shit over and over, and he still had people following him and were giving him money or financing him. Like, this is the same thing. And Ben touched on it really good. I mean, if it was anyone else that had legitimate credentials or legitimate background and was transparent and explained more than 3 sentences what they plan on doing, their background, what they actually plan on doing, where your money's going, I'd be on board. Like, let's do this. Let's see what we come up with, because I'm curious. But this is not what we're seeing here. This is someone that's Rufus.
Well, no, that Mike knows my dog's middle name.
Okay.
His first name is Watson, and his middle name is Rufus.
Your dog has a middle name.
Yep.
Wow. Let's explore that.
just came out of me one day.
Watson Rufus. Wow. Okay.
Watson Rufus Xavier. Sarsaparilla.
It's Watson Rufus.
Okay. All right. I mean, I said it before. I said it earlier in the show. We should not be talking about her, and I didn't mean that as in like, this show shouldn't be doing whatever. Right. We shouldn't be talking about her because she should not be
doing this
a topic of discussion anymore. Except going back and seeing what has screwed up in the past and what not to do. I mean, that's definitely on that list. What not to do. And it bugged me. I have trouble comprehending why people still support her on this. And I mean, again, it makes everyone look bad.
Now, Rowdy says, can he come on? You're putting Melba in the same category as RD. No, not really. Again, we're going back to human behavior, right? Certain people, these certain archetypes, they, Todd Standing, there's another one. You put his stuff down, he disappears for a while, comes back. Rick Dyer, same thing. Put stuff out there, gets shot down, tries to come back. Now you got Melba doing it. How many other people, Biscardi, there's another one. How many times are we going to entertain these people that have let us down in the past? Let's forget about hoax or greed or anything like that. But these people have let us down in the past. With big claims saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they come forward and nothing. And we constantly see that. Not putting people down, not defaming people, just stating the fact.
Yeah. I would like to see some really good, legitimate, science-based work. And I'm sure there is stuff out there. I don't want to upset anyone. I'm not. I gently dip my toes into the Bigfoot community. I go out when I can. I've actually, Steve, you and I have met a couple times.
Yep.
I'm not big into it, but I would like to see some more good, solid work rather than a lot of the showboating that I talked about earlier. With the I got to be first, I got to be the most, and then stuff like this where. All this money, $23,000, could go to what? Something much better. I think something more legitimate, and it could go to something that would progress your research further. I don't think this is progressing. I think this is just running in circles. This is dog man chasing his tail. That's what I see here. Just going around in circles and not doing anything for the community.
That's $23,000 that could go to rebuild a park. That could go to feeding the homeless. That could be doing a bunch of other things.
Or donate it to a university that has a program or like a professor has this as a side program and says, hey, I'm trying to legitimize this and I'm trying to really, okay, cool. I'll go out. I've gone out before.
I believe you've met Mike before.
I think so. I think so.
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think it would go great to a university that would actually have something where they, set up Sykes. I think you guys mentioned it, right?
Yep.
Something like that where we get samples from legitimate sources. And again, I'm sorry, but not weekend warriors, not hobbyists, because who knows? And I think Steve, you touched on it, like the chain of custody. Where did this come from? How was this handled? What do we know about this? Did it just show up in like a Ziploc bag, or did it show up in a paper envelope, or did it show up, in a plastic container or a glass container that had jelly in it before, or peanut butter? Who knows? You need to know. You need to document all this stuff. So that's my 2 cents. I'd love to see it this money actually be donated to a university that can do solid work rather than this recurring.
And Raptor says there's no such thing as Dogman. That was started on YouTube when it first. You know what? I tend to think that the Dogman is sort of evolved a little quicker than Slender Man, because the Slender Man was an internet hoax.
Yes.
Right. So I think
deadly one.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. But the Dogman, I think, I think it really started with the Gable film years ago, and that got circulated around, and then it turned out to be a hoax. Yeah. But it kept on. It's kind of like the Lizard Man in Bishopville, South Carolina. And I actually went on a Lizard Man investigation.
You were there, yeah, that's right.
Really?
Yeah, and I have a piece of the van that was allegedly chewed up by the Lizard Man, but I called it right away by looking at the teeth impressions. That number one, the first and foremost, this wasn't a hoax. Something actually chewed up the vehicle, because where there was people were saying, "Oh, these folks are hoaxing this," those are tool marks. No, there wasn't a tool mark, because for every bite I could feel under the bumper and feel where the mandible had come up. But the bite marks were canine. They weren't lizard-like. They weren't primate. They were canine. Sure enough, the sheriff actually had the blood that was left on the vehicle tested, and it turned out to be canine. Now, people ask, why would a canine be going after this car? Well, I was looking around, and the folks had a lot of cats. Lots. I mean, like 20.
Oh, okay.
And I said, can we pop the hood of the vehicle? They popped the hood of the vehicle, and inside the header bolts, where they're recessed and the bolts, get bolted down, and there was cat hair.
Mm.
So what happened was the dog was chasing the cat. The cat went up into the engine block, and the dog was trying to get at the cat.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe Lizard Man did a superhero team up with Dog Man, and they were going at it together. Like, let's hang out. We got a couple weekends. Let's have a few drinks, mess up a few cars.
Maybe the Blair Witch came out too.
Oh yeah,
it would have been better if instead of claiming Lizard Man, if they would have claimed Dog Man. That way, when they got the dog DNA, they would have been like, "Oh wow, check it out!" See,
yeah.
But the funny thing is, you look at the original report, and the funny thing is, I met the old sheriff during the 1980s when the Lizard Man came out, and he was showing us these tracks that he had made, and they were all the same length. Okay, that's what we expect. But their toe splays were all the same too. Meaning it was just stamped on there, basically.
Okay.
And
nice. Good work.
And then we actually look at the description of this Lizard Man that was seen. And what they described in the article was actually a hairy biped. It was a Bigfoot. But somebody had asked him, did you see any skin? He goes, well, I saw the palm of its hand. And what did it look like? He goes, well, it was very leathery, almost lizard-like. And then that's how the term Lizard Man got spun out.
Wow. Because that's not at all what I expected to hear as a description. Wow.
So when you find these things out, you dig these things up like, the Honey Island Swamp Monster, there was another very interesting story when you start digging with the locals that have been around for years. And were people seeing a hairy biped? Yes, but it wasn't in the Honey Island Swamp. It was actually north of the Honey Island Swamp, in the forested areas. But guess what was going on there? Stills. Alcohol stills. So they didn't want a bunch of Bigfoot hunters in there going after the stills.
Yeah.
So that's how the Honey Island Swamp story was created. It's based on something real, but the geographic location was wrong because they wanted to divert people from going to these sensitive areas.
Does each state have like their own hybrid man?
Hybrid? No, I don't think so. Like the Honey Island Swamp Monster, people, And what I did notice with the Honey Island thing is some people say it's a dew claw of a gator or something like that. But there were a lot of blue herons, giant blue herons, and they're huge. And they leave those three-toed tracks all the time.
Okay.
But, you know, I mean, in New York, we've had the you know, different names for Bigfoot. You know, Momo in Missouri. We've had the Kinderhook creature in New York in Kinderhook, New York. That was back in the 80s. Very well documented.
What's that? What's that look like?
It's a traditional Sasquatch.
Oh, okay. All right.
They just dubbed it the Kinderhook creature. And the funny thing about that is it's really weird because, you know, you'll say, oh, yeah, well, you know, Steve, he does Bigfoot research. And for years I go, oh, you know, my father lived down in Kinderhook and he saw one in his driveway boogie out as he pulled in. Really? I mean, some of these really weird, you know, connotations as an investigator is really hard to escape. And that's why I think some of these mysteries need to be answered. And it wasn't going to be somebody running around in a costume because some of them were audible. Some of them were going on constantly. But there was very little police involvement, unlike Whitehall back in the 70s, where there was a lot of police involvement. And police officers even reported 3 separate police agencies in Whitehall report seeing it from a distance going into the woodline, which was really cool.
You know, I think there's a lot. If you go back and over time and the Bigfoot stories told, there may be some misidentified, like somebody said they saw a goblin. Don't go in this holler. There's a goblin up there, or there's a troll or something. And, you know, that may be the words they were using for it to describe it because they couldn't really compare it with anything else. But the description goes back to something walking, standing on 2 legs that was hairy.
And then you have to look at folklore.
Right.
I mean, you know, people talk about all the time about the Native Americans talking about the Sasquatch, you know, and this is what boggles my mind is some people say, well, they're dangerous because the Native Americans always talked about them grabbing women and sometimes young children. And I go, you've never heard of the couple parked in the cemetery story with a hook?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
That, you know, throughout, you know, if you study anthropology, you know this. Throughout history, people have always come out with stories that try to scare people from being where they shouldn't be.
Right. Don't go out after dark.
Teen couples shouldn't be parking in cemeteries.
Right.
Alone.
You know, alone.
In a car. Yes.
Right. The women and young children shouldn't wander out in the forest on their own because the Sasquatch might get them, or the Gogu, or the Adenauhe, or whatever, the Wendigo, whatever term they would use.
I agree, Steve.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even haunted woods gets related to Bigfoot. Yeah.
True. I always kind of look at that with a lot of interest. I mean, do I believe that the Native American legends bring some validity to the mystery? Possibly. But everything has to be parsed because we knew that Native Americans believe eagles had souls and, you know, certain
yeah, there's kind of a lot of spirituality there you got to kind of watch out
and that's
for,
fine, and that's all and well and good, and even if they still believe that to this day, that's all well and good. People are entitled to their beliefs, but occasionally truth is truth.
Well, yeah, traditionally though, when they described an animal, it was always something real. And when they describe a Sasquatch as one of the animals in the forest, you know, they also describe maybe the bald eagle as being something in the forest. Well, yeah, bald eagles are there, you know. Well, in certain parts of the country anyway.
So, and the other thing too is I truly believe that there have been, you know, obvious misidentification. I mean, look at the giant squid. I mean, so there's always strange things that happen, and that's what I like about Kenny. He doesn't make fun of it all. He just says, hey, show me the money, show me the evidence, show me what
show me. Yeah, I mean, I'm all into it, and like that's one of the things that I think I can. I don't want to. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm proud of. That's what I want to say. I'm proud of that. I get not only do I go out and attend like these different excursions, looking for Bigfoot, looking for like a lake monster, looking for aliens or UFO landings, and then of course, you know, ghosts and haunted houses and stuff. But I get invited out. I get invited out by the groups that are looking for it, and it's because I don't try to make fun of everything. I don't
an armchair skeptic.
Right. Sometimes I'm not an armchair. No, not at all. Right. I love getting out in the field, boots on ground. That's the way I like to do things. I do a lot of research here, you know, and I'm sure, Steve, you can attest to that because there's a lot you can find out here documentation wise. But, to get out in the field to see where people are.
That's how we spend our winters in New York.
Yeah. Does it ever end? But yeah, I like to get out there and get my hands dirty, you know, and see what's going on. And I think that gives me a good perspective rather than the armchair skeptic that's just going to sit there, or rather I would say like the armchair cynic that sits there and just says, no, it's not true. Right. It's not, you know, like, I mean, I poke fun sometimes. I'm a sarcastic person by nature. My Philly, you know, accent comes out, my Philly behavior comes out. I can't help it. I'm sarcastic. You know, and I don't mean anything by it. I don't mean anything mean, you know, but it still comes out. I'll make a joke. You and I have gone back and forth. But here we are. We're still. But
now we understand each other and we're brethren in this battle.
But I mean, I'm still willing to go out and look and take a gander. I'll voice my opinions just like anyone else will. And I like to stress that, like, everyone is free to they can express their opinions, and you can be for or against, and I hear a lot for. And then when I'm maybe against something, it's usually like, oh, how dare you? But hey, I'm just speaking just like you guys are. Yeah. So
never forget the live podcast. We did want to.
My ex-mom is easily confused with goblins.
And her meatloaf is too. You know, when we did the live podcast from the woods, I remember I went down by myself at first, heard something big moving in the woods and whatever, and I'm like, I'm not saying this is Bigfoot. It could be a bear, it could be a moose, because I know there's moose that run around here and blah 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 blah. So I had Mike double time down there, and Mike got geared up double time down to where I was, and this is all going on live on the air. And Mike spots something real brief on his thermal, and it, you know, whatever it is, just went there and gone. And then it's a 50-degree night, 48-degree night, and then all of a sudden, after it disappears, we hear tree knock. And we're like, what the hell? We're not tree knocking. Why would anybody? Nobody's up here. Why would anybody do that? So we walk along a little further, start gabbing, and then right next to us a rock. All caught on audio, all caught, like, now something's throwing rocks at us. And literally it dropped at my foot. And, you know, we were standing on stone, so it was like you could hear, and we were standing still, and you could hear that. You could actually hear the leaves of the tree, you know, banging down. We're like, what the hell? So we've had some really interesting stuff go on, and there's nobody out there. And, Pat Collins is bringing up one of my quotes about Robert's Rangers, and one of their entries in the 1750s stated they repelled a group of bears throwing rocks at them with a volley of shot.
Right.
Now, the automatic default is it's Bigfoot, but could it be, just saying, at the time was the French and Indian War, and the French were very big into furs.
Yeah.
You know, could it have been Native Americans wearing furs? Could it have been the trappers wearing furs? They didn't have muskets, so they just start throwing rocks at the British soldiers.
That's interesting.
Who knows? Could be. That's one simple explanation for that.
And that's good. That's good to hear that, because I think there's always that idea, that bias, if you will, or preconceived notion that, Well, if you're a believer, you're just going to default to Bigfoot.
Right.
If you're a skeptic, you're going to default to, no, it's not. It's a bear, you know? And it's nice to hear that we're talking about it. And here's a witness case from 3 centuries ago. Yeah. And it's like, could it be? I don't know. It could be this. And you're finding a logical explanation for it. I like hearing that. That's nice.
Now, in my younger days, maybe when I first started, maybe I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. And could it have been a group of Sasquatch? Could have been, but there's also the possibility of that. So we can't, because it's so far removed from current events.
Yeah.
What I have a hard time disbelieving is when you have a county sheriff, a town police officer, and a state police officer all saying they saw one scoot into a wood line, walk into a wood line and up into the hill. That I have a hard time discounting because they have no reason to make this story up.
Right.
Yeah. And you've got to do your research.
And they were responding to a call where somebody was seeing it. So
several years ago, I got a couple of reports, not in a row.
Well, of course, that's the natural progression there. So you say a few Frenchies through Roger that night.
Absolutely.
Well, I got some reports several years ago about a specific area that I mapped out and to where the locations were where the reports and sightings had originated. And it was all in around an area called Goblin Hollow, Goblin Hollow. Okay,
that's cool.
And that was one report came from that area, which it was in a pretty close area to a hot spot that had multiple sightings. Another one came in later, and sure enough, it was around about the same area of Goblin Hollow. So I started looking up and said, well, wait a minute. This is right on the map. Goblin Knob, Goblin Hollow. How the hell did this name come about? Excuse my language. Why would somebody call this that? And as it turned out, no, it wasn't. The name of the place wasn't made because people had seen hairy individuals. It was because of a large population of wild turkeys. And so you can hear them. You could hear them gobble out, and it would echo through the hollow, so they named it Goblin Hollow.
Yeah, they're gobbling.
Gobbling, yeah. But on the map, it says Goblin, like Goblin.
Well, it's like Ape Canyon.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was trying to say Ape Canyon, including one rather famous, Henry Franzoni, who went on the A&E Bigfoot special back in 1994. Who's saying that Ape Canyon was named after the Fred Beck incident and because of the area.
I think that
it turned out that Ape Canyon was actually named after a youth collective called the St. Helens Apes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not because of the Fred Beck incident, but that's how these things get, discombobulated.
Yeah. But now I want to throw in that I do believe that the two sightings were credible. I have no doubt in these guys whatsoever. But the place name, that I was trying to piece together ended up completely unrelated, unrelated to the topic.
That's cool. That was cool, though. He said that. I was like, goblin. Yeah.
Gobbling, yeah.
Gobbling.
Awesome.
The funny thing is there in Whitehall, there is up off of Abear Road, which is where the crux of the flap was in 76. I call it flap, even though that's a UFO term. It's the best a cluster of sighting, maybe that's a more accurate term. But there's actually a road called Stalker Lane. And I'm kind of curious as to wondering why they called it Stalker Lane.
Right, yeah.
That's just really a weird name because, there was a weird dude that used to live up on the hill, used to come down and walk up and down the road. So we called it Stalker Lane.
Yeah.
I don't think that's quite why they did it. So, but
oh boy, this has been fun, man.
Corn stalks. There's Pat Collins. Corn stalks. Good point. There's no corn in that area though. So there's Stalker Road, yeah. And then there is a Bigfoot, Texas. but that's not named after Bigfoot. That was named after a guy that had a big foot, and it was kind of a famous Texan.
Oh,
so
like to
so
research
always,
that. That'd be interesting. The only claim to fame of a cool place I've been to is Metropolis, Illinois, because I'm a big Superman fan.
Cool.
Went out there, saw the Superman museum and the big 50-foot statue they have in the town square, and been to the Metropolis Planet newspaper. They got a little planet thing outside.
Nice.
That's my claim to fame.
Very cool.
You know, I don't like when they call him just Cal. It's Kal-El.
Kal-El, yeah.
Damn it.
I tried to name my son Kal-El, and I got vetoed right away. Yeah. And then it's a quick story, totally off topic, but for some reason my wife was out of the hospital room right after my son was born. They were taking it somewhere, and the nurse came in and said, "All right, we're filling out the birth certificate. What's the spelling of the name going on the birth certificate?" And I was like, I saw my opportunity and I took it. And as soon as I was like, it's Kal-El, it's capital K-A-L dash capital E-L, Biddle. And the nurse looked at me and said, "Yeah, I'll wait till the mom gets back." And went right out of the room. And that was it. I was like, I had my chance and it's gone. There. So
Kenny got vetoed on that one.
I did. I got totally vetoed by my wife and the nurse. And I'm pretty pissed about it, but oh well.
So here's the funny thing. Raptor goes, you talk about the stuff you did in the recorder. How come you don't show those? I did, and I have. And I didn't expect that to come up in conversation tonight. It's not like
it's on the videos. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the videos.
Sorry, man.
Including some of the uploaded ones where I uploaded the enhanced sounds of it.
Oh,
yeah. So, yep.
You gotta watch those videos.
Yep. It's there. In fact, no, I don't have time to do a search for it now. We're almost ending the show. It's getting close to the holler line.
Yeah. That was on the episode where Mike got hit in the face with a beach ball too, wasn't it?
And that was.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's at the end of the video, actually. So, in slow motion where it goes.
I know, it's difficult to be in the field with Steve, but man, you're a trooper. Much respect, sir.
I'm gonna see you in like what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, right. You coming to Rochester?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Yep, I'll be out there.
Yeah.
Time to tip a few back in the evening.
Yeah. It's an hour away from me now, so this is the first chance. He's invited me a couple times, but it's always been like a 6-7 hour drive, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, but now, in less than an hour I'll be there. So we'll be hanging out, see some pictures. We'll get some pictures of us, and we'll cause some trouble.
Definitely. Yeah, Mike will be out there too, Mike Ann. So
awesome.
Cool. You guys are really close. He lives in that area.
Okay.
So you guys are real close, and he does a lot of jumping around and stuff like that. So I'm sure he said he made that offer. He will take you out. He will.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm game.
Mike's law enforcement. So good guy, real solid guy. And doing a lot of stuff. He's working very closely with the North Carolina study that's going on. So that's really
okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but maybe we can talk when I see you.
Yeah,
you can give me up to date on that.
Yeah, Mike is probably the go-to guy for that because I'm just if I get something, I have to. They actually gave kits out to people. If you come across hair, to collect it and here's your kit. But I always carry a DNA kit in my sack, so I carry buccal swabs, I carry tubes, I carry gloves, I actually carry fingerprint powder, duster, and lift tape and cards. So
carry quite a few things. Yeah, I got luminol.
Got luminol too. Yep.
All that stuff. It's interesting when I break out the bag and it's like, you're because I'm usually surrounded by ghost hunters and they have their, all their little gadgets that don't work. And and then I pull out and I'm like, oh, I take out a clipboard and start looking, and they look in my bag and they're like, what's this? Like, it's luminol. And they're like, what the hell's that for? You never know.
Well, it's kind of funny because years ago I heard they put some luminol down in the Lizzie Borden house and they got hits.
Oh wow!
Well, imagine that. That's the blood stains from that murder.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
That's a long time. I'm surprised they didn't get anything.
Okay.
There's all kinds of. I mentioned the word sack.
Yeah, and there it goes. The show takes a turn.
Turn for the worst.
We love our chat listeners. Really do.
That's great.
Weird.
Yes,
absolutely.
And that was Bechtrid's explanation for there not being Bigfoot's paranormal was
poop everywhere. Poop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those sound bites will forever. He was like the third show I ever did, maybe fourth show, and that was back in 2006.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. How many shows are you up to? This is episode 120.
Yeah, because we switched over to YouTube in 2019, and we took some time off, I think, in 2021.
Okay.
So, because I used to have a job, I started a new job tomorrow where I used to have to do inventory stuff.
Okay.
So I would be, and of course, they wanted to do all their inventories on Sunday nights. So we had a period of probably about 6 or 7 weeks of me being tied up with these inventories for like 2 months.
Got to keep the nose to the grindstone.
Not anymore. I'm done with that bullshit. Anyway, but Kenny, thanks for coming on tonight, hanging with us. It's going to be real fun. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Awesome mayhem.
It was fun. I always like doing. I don't often get to do a show with Ben, except when it's like our shows where we have each other on, but it's nice to not only just us discussing. Sometimes it's like preaching to the choir when it's just the two of us. It's nice to have people with different ideas and different backgrounds and discussing. Like discussing like normal people, not fighting or trying to throw shit at each other. It's just very nice. I enjoy this, and I would be happy to come back anytime and do the same thing.
And the funny thing is the people that often complain about mudslinging are the first ones to throw the mud pies.
Yeah.
They're the first ones to say, "Oh, you're defaming," or "Oh, you're." No, we're discussing fact.
We're discussing it. And Chris brought it up. We were reading public documents.
Right.
It wasn't anything that we just made up out of thin air. No. We weren't making false reports. That's the big thing. Nothing was false. This was this is official court documents. Yeah. So it's not like we're
and it makes and it has a big revelation as to what went wrong.
Yeah.
In the last study, and why should we, if she's continuing this attitude of she was right in the first study, why should we expect anything to change?
Yeah.
So anyway, again, Kenny, thanks for coming on, my brother.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Take it easy,
and
guys.
if you want to stick around in the after chat, that's fine.
I'll stick around. Yeah.
All right. So let's kick off, folks. Want to wish everybody a great, healthy, safe week. Chris, do your thing. You always do. I forgot. We got to get to your thing.
Oh, well, I want to thank Kenny for coming on with us. Always a pleasure. I enjoyed having you. Love the banter between you and Ben Radford. That's really great.
We get along great. We get along really good. Yeah.
I want to thank our wonderful chat room listeners. We appreciate you guys. You guys really do make the show. And we're honored to have you, and we appreciate you tuning in with us. If it's the first time watching the show on YouTube, man, please hit that likes button. Throw down a subscribe if you hadn't already. We appreciate it. Stop by you podcast listeners. Stop by SquatchDTV.com.
sorry, wrong button.
Or not. Yeah. Podcast guys, stop by SquatchDTV.com and you can see the episodes that we've filmed here on YouTube. But that's all I got. We love you guys.
All right. And folks, if you want to sit there and throw us an insulting comment, just remember.
Enjoy the band.
And folks, before we go, we need a moment to laugh. So, folks, the announcement is there's a new study coming out, a new DNA study involving all cryptids and dogman.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
Ready!
Okay, folks, everybody have a happy, safe, healthy week. We love you all, and, God bless, and, of course, keep on squatching. We'll see you all next week right here, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on Squatch-D TV.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless and keep on squatching.